Hey everyone, this time we're going to be looking at Joust and Balloon Fight. Joust was released in 1982 by Williams, and Balloon Fight was released 2 years later, 1984, by Nintendo. While both of these were originally arcade games, we're going to be looking at the console ports, just because it's a little bit easier for me to capture those. It's not really going to be too different, I just wanted to let you guys know, because the arcade version of Joust is definitely going to look better than the Atari 2600 version. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the arcade games. Joust was a follow-up, sort of, for Defender. Williams had made Defender in 1981, and Joust was kind of a way for them to continue and build on the success that that game had. Now, Balloon Fight started out as Versus Balloon Fight, and it was released on a really cool-looking cabinet. It was Nintendo's Versus cabinet. It also got put out on the Play Choice 10, which is kind of cool. It was a way for Nintendo to show off some of their early games before they got released on console. You can see where Balloon Fight has taken a bit of inspiration from Joust. Both of these games came out at a time when the arcades were still doing very well, and at least were still pretty profitable for the companies that were involved. Balloon Fight is basically a clone of Joust. It does do a few things to try to stand out, and does help the player out a little bit more than Joust does. But we'll get more into that when we go into the games individually. So let's take a closer look at both of these games. We're going to start out with Joust, and then we'll move on to Balloon Fight. In Joust, you play as a knight who is riding on an ostrich, and your goal is to take out the other ostriches, and also collect the eggs so that the enemies don't come back. It's a weird concept, but it's kind of fun, and it does sort of punish you a little bit when you don't collect the eggs in time, which, in all honesty, is kind of easy to do for me because I think I needed a lot more practice when I was trying to play this game. Now, the layout of the game kind of reminds me a bit of the original Mario Bros. Arcade. I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but it feels like it's pretty close, where you have the platforms on either side, and then you have the two central ones, and also the respawning enemies. Not to mention that, but you have the dragon, and, he kind of acts like the fireballs in Mario. Now, Joust is a really weird game, both in the way you play it and also just the overall concept of the game. It just helped it stand out a lot more. It's not, the most unique game in the entire world, but definitely some of the weird stuff that goes on in the game. It really adds to the charm of it. And, in an arcade full of space shooters and maze chase games, this really did stand out from the others. Joust came out at a time when genres were still really being defined in video games. In an arcade full of space shooters and maze chases, Joust did stand out quite a bit from the others. Now, Joust was able to stand out from the other arcade games because it was pretty unique. But just like a lot of other arcade games that had some success, they were going to get cloned and copied, just like Pac-Man did, Defender, and also Space Invaders. People weren't just going to sit by when they saw something making money and not think, hey, we can do that too. So in 1984, Nintendo gave us Versus Balloon Fight, which was renamed as Balloon Fight on the NES. As you can kind of see, a lot of similarities to Joust. Instead of a knight riding on an ostrich with a lance to take out your enemies, you are just a little dude with a pair of balloons attached to you. These balloons act as your hit points, and every time you get hit, you lose a balloon. Lose all your balloons, and you fall to your death. The enemies, they have their own hit points as well. They also have these weird Plague Doctor masks, which I didn't really notice right away. But just like Joust, you get 2 shots to take them out. The first one takes out their balloon, the second one takes out their parachute. If they're on the ground and you see them pumping up their new balloons, you can actually run into them and take them out. One of my biggest problems with Joust was really the controls and kind of the physics of the game. That was probably due to me just not being very good at it. But here in Balloon Fight, it feels like it's, fixed a little bit. There are some things to it, but it does kind of feel like, a step in the right direction instead of, just running around in a circle and praying that you're high enough when you run into your enemies. One thing I did forget to mention with Joust, you do have to be above your enemy's lance in order to hit them. It's very similar here with Balloon Fight, where you can only actually attack and hurt your enemies from above. If you attack them from below, they pop one of your 2 balloons. You can get your balloons back, which is always nice, and, it's not too hard of a game. Also, if you wander too close to the ocean, a giant fish comes up and eats you. Now, Balloon Fight does have one more thing that kind of makes it stand out a little bit from Joust. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at that right now. So that thing that helps it stand out is the balloon trip. This is just an absolute nightmare for me because I was still really getting used to the controls. But you're trying to avoid all those little sparks, which I like to think is either stars or lightning. You do encounter lightning in the game at some point, and, I like to think that these are just more of that. It's kind of hard to get yourself moving, but once you get the hang of it, it's not, too difficult. It's secondary game modes like this that really help the NES kind of stand out from the other video game consoles. It's just one of the cool things that Nintendo did in order to, add some extra value to their games. It's not exactly, too hard to do this. I have mentioned this earlier, but the physics on this are pretty crazy. And also, the constant scrolling does help you along. You're gonna make a mistake at some point, but with some practice, you can get through this pretty well. So that's going to wrap it up, guys. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I know I liked making this, because it was pretty fun to take a look at both of these games. Anyway, if you have any comments, please leave them below, and have a great day.